Challenges won't stop me. It's a strength and resilience mindset. Let me tell you, it's not ignoring the difficulties in your life. Just look at it as a journey of seeing opportunities in the challenges and discovering who God intends for you to be. Whether it's host Melanie Brown's motivational messages or it's courageous women sharing the strategies and habits they utilize when navigating those unexpected turns, you can expect to become equipped and empowered to fight to overcome any challenge that dares to cross your path. The goal? Building and maintaining a challenges won't stop me mindset. Let's go.
Welcome to the Challenges Won't Stop Me podcast. Thanks for joining me for today's interview. You might gasp when my guest shares the challenges she's overcome, but I know you will also smile when you hear the joy in her voice. My guest is Tiffany Johnson. She's an author, speaker, worship leader, homeschool mom to 3 precious kids, and wife to JJ. Since their first anniversary, Tiffany and her husband take a couples vacation every year to invest in their marriage. You go, girl. What that means is no kids, lots of sun, good food, and fun adventures. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? Except maybe for the snorkeling adventure during their 2017 vacation that included a shark attack. And that was the first of many challenges that day. When Tiffany tells her story, I encourage you to listen for all the ways God was with her that day. I had the opportunity to meet Tiffany in person several months ago, and she is truly a joy. I know you're going to love her. Please join me for my conversation with Tiffany Johnson. Welcome, Tiffany. I am so excited to spend time with you today.
Thank you. It is my honor. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, what a story. We're going to get into all the details in just a moment, but let's start with how old you were when your big life challenge happened.
Yeah, I was 32 years old. So it was just over 5 years ago.
And where were you and what were you doing?
So we were on a cruise, my husband and I, just the two of us without the kiddos.
Nice.
And yes, so that's an intentional trip we do every year. We do something together, and that was that trip. So that last stop of the cruise was Nassau, Bahamas, and we went snorkeling there.
What happened?
Yeah, the typical shore excursions where you go and barter for the deals and do all the fun stuff. And we booked a package for parasailing and snorkeling. Went out parasailing first, and then transferred into a smaller boat to go out to the reef. And that's where my husband, on the way out, was starting to feel seasick. Those choppy waters, those small boats, they really mess with him. When we got in the water to snorkel, he couldn't snorkel long. It was only about 20 minutes or so. And that's when he started kind of heading back to the boat. And I remember popping my head up and being like, hey, what's going on? And
Where are
he's
you
like,
going?
yeah, like what's going on? And he's like, yeah, I'm not feeling well. It's gotten worse. I need to go back to the boat. And I knew what that meant because that had happened a couple years prior. And I'm like, you go take care of business. I'm going to stay out here because it only been 20 minutes. So that's what I did. He went back to the boat. He ended up throwing up everywhere a few different times. And I just stayed out there and enjoyed that view and got lost in that world of God's creation under the water. During that time, I had felt like I had bumped into something. And it was all of a sudden, it should have been a red flag, but that's literally what it felt like. Was I slammed into something. So I was so casual. I turned to my right to see what I had bumped into, and I was face to face with a shark. And he had my whole arm pinned in his mouth. Of course, fear just takes over,
I
and
can't
that's
even imagine, Tiffany. That is just so horrifying to think of. When I was a kid, I came face to face with a snake during a hide and seek thing, and that has traumatized me.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't even imagine coming face to face with a shark.
Yes, and my of course my mind is it's like reeling at that point. Fear, I felt like it surrounded my thoughts. Like I started having even movie clips of my life like playing. It was like my body was giving up. I could feel that almost releasing of this is it, like that was the feeling
Mm.
and all the thoughts. But then I felt the strength of the Lord just come out from inside of me and give me the strength to fight. And that's when I literally had to push those thoughts back. And I remember thinking clearly, no, you will not take my life. I am not going to die here. And it was like a shift from that, the strength of the Lord, like coming out, And so that's when I yanked my arm. And at that point was when he began to fight and thrash. Before that, he was just still, he just had me pinned. And it was almost like he was waiting for me to make a move. And so when I yanked, he began to thrash. I was screaming through my snorkel tube, but all you can really hear is that, sound because you can't really utter words. And unbeknownst to me, nobody knew that I was fighting for my life because my husband had gotten sick all over the boat, and it was distracting the captain and the two other people that were with us. And he was in the water washing himself off. So nobody saw what was going on. I was just fighting for my life for this shark trying to get away from him, but he had me pinned. So it was like I was yanking, but I wasn't going anywhere. So I kept doing that, like struggling, trying to yank. And at one point, when I yanked, my arm kind of flew out and it was half gone, like it severed, mangled stump. And I remember just staring at it for a second, like in shock, like my arm's gone, like
Yeah,
I don't even know how to like process that.
I don't know how to process it as you're telling me, much less
Yeah.
it happening to me. That is unbelievable. But what I loved hearing you say is that you felt God in you to give you that strength.
Yes.
Wow. That is
I
so
mean,
powerful.
in the word, it talks about the Lord being our strength, right?
Yes.
And sometimes that seems very cliche when you say that, like, oh, yeah, God's my strength, the strength, it's inside of me. But like, I felt that tangible strength coming from all those scriptures I poured into myself, all the worship time, all the meetings with Jesus, like I felt like that was that peace that was hidden inside of me, and it literally I could feel it coming out and really giving me the strength to fight back. I can't describe it any other way but just that, like that gut feeling, like it was coming from inside of me. And it talks about in the word, what you pour in, it matters,
Yes,
and
it
that's
does.
that's a tangible example that I can give of that for sure.
Well, praise God, because when you needed him the most, he was there. He was tangible. And
Yes.
can't even imagine what would have happened if you had succumbed to those thoughts that you first felt.
Yeah. It,
We wouldn't be
it,
talking today, maybe.
no, no. And I actually, on my prosthetic, I have the verse from Psalms 18. It talks about the Lord rescuing me out of deep waters. It's crazy. It's like my story. Once you listen to all of my story, podcasters, you listeners, you got to go in and read Psalm 18. It's crazy. But the first part of that talks about that. And on there, it says, God rescued me on my prosthetic from that verse, because he literally, he reached down and rescued me. It's amazing.
Yes, he did. So once that you were able to get away from the shark to the surface of the water, what happened then?
At that point, because I was already at the surface, I was breathing through my snorkel tube the entire time, which, by the way, side note, is a miracle, because if anybody's been snorkeling, you know, like just normal snorkeling, that water comes in and you're like, like choking on the water, whatever. And that's just normal snorkeling. So, in the midst of fighting the shark, my snorkel tube stayed at the surface of the water the entire time, which is crazy. and he didn't pull me under, which is another weird thing for a shark not to do because it's in their nature to yank things down. So we stayed at the surface of the water the entire time. So when he let go of me, all I had to do was throw off my snorkel mask and I screamed out, "Help, help me, Jesus." And that's the point where my husband heard me um, on the boat.
I've gone snorkeling and had to go back to the boat and sit on the edge of the boat and wait on my family. So I
Yeah.
sympathize with your husband because
Yeah.
that's me all day long. So as he's hearing you cry out like that, have you asked him what he was
Oh,
thinking?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I can only imagine the feeling he had because when you get sick, you know that feeling like you're like
Ugh.
done. You're done. Like you feel like everything got out of you, and you're just at this place where you're weak. You're just your mind's all clouded and whatever. He was describing that, and then he had walked up the ladder to get back in the boat, and at that point is when he heard me cry out. All I saw was blood in the water. And
Ugh.
then I saw you begin to swim back. And he said, I saw you raise your arm up, your injured arm up. And there it is, like severed, spewing blood everywhere. I mean, it looked like Old Faithful. It was just spouting. And of course, the adrenaline's running. I'm trying to swim as quick as I can with my one non dominant hand I have left, and so every stroke you can imagine is probably pushing that blood even more,
Yes.
because I'm working to try to get to that boat. And so he said it was like a fountain coming out of your arm. It was like a horror movie, really, is how he describes it. I felt like I was in a horror movie. And I remember looking up at his eyes, and it was terror, like sheer terror, like I've never seen before. I still remember that look, and it's just an eerie, awful look, and he screamed out, "Baby!" because that's what he calls me. And so he's like jumps in the water. I'm still trying to get to the boat, and all I could think about was that shark's right behind me. He's gonna strike again. He's gonna grab my leg, grab my arm, grab my side. Like that's the feeling, like he was following me. But I didn't look back. I was just literally eyes locked on that boat, and I was praying, God, get me to that boat. And by the time my husband met me in the water, I had made it most of the way, like 80, 90% of the way. He kind of just guided me that last little bit. And then the captain threw out a rope, and, we're using it quickly to get in. He kind of launched me as soon as we get to the ladder. He like launched me out of the water. The captain grabs my left arm, and I like land on that boat. And I'm serious. The minute I hit that boat, the peace of the Lord just surrounded me like a cloud. His presence was so thick and tangible. It was beyond what I could really fully put into words.
I can't even imagine any of this. I just am so in awe of what you've been through, but also God's hand. Golly,
Yes.
there is
Yes.
no way that anyone can deny that God is with you. This is just the first few times where God has just made his appearance
Yes.
very well known. As you're getting in the boat, thank you, God, for getting her in the boat. And as you said,
Yes.
and I'm visualizing the shark pursuing you just like the
Yes.
enemy pursues us.
Yes.
And I believe with everything in me that God was keeping him away from you.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. Like I want to one day, when I get to heaven, ask Lord, can you rewind that and play that whole scene out so I can see exactly what happened from his point of view? 'Cause I really believe he put like a shield of protection, because when there's one shark, there is usually more. Like that's scientifically, that's what they found, right? And blood in the water makes them go,
Uh-huh.
So I already have a shark that is right there, but I'm just shocked that more sharks didn't come that were in the area, because I've read about other attacks that have happened where that has happened because of the blood in the water. So I believe 100% that his hand was over me, protecting me to get back to the boat.
Saying the shield, it reminds me, and there's so many verses, so I don't have necessarily one specific one memorized, but that he is our shield.
Amen.
And you're saying that you believe that he shielded you, and I
Yes.
I can't disagree with you at
No.
all. So let's get
Yeah.
back to you being on the boat finally. Were there other passengers there, and how were they reacting?
Yeah, so there was 2 other people with us. We didn't know them prior to they were on the same cruise as us, but, it's like one of those things where you just book it and whoever shows up shows up. They were younger, and didn't speak very great English, so I was trying to make conversation with them prior to, and we just kind of chit chatted a little bit. But she did share that this was her very first time snorkeling, and she was really nervous. So
Oh,
whenever we went in the water, they stick really close to the boat. Like they didn't venture out at all. They kind of got in, swim around a little bit, and went right back in. Like they were really just didn't weren't really feeling it. When I remember when I got onto the boat, of course my blood is everywhere. It's still spewing everywhere. I looked ahead to try to figure out, like, we need something to stop the bleeding. And I remember seeing them huddled at the front of the boat, like shaking in fear. And that's when I saw the towel that the cruise line gives us. It was sticking out of our bag that was like right by where they were at. And I yelled to my husband, like, go get the beach towel. And we find out there's no med kit on board. So that's what we used.
okay. Wait a minute. There's no medical kit on this boat? How is that even possible?
Yeah, well, hopefully things have changed since my story, because I don't
Yes.
know what the regulations are with that, but you would think that would be a normal thing for tourist boats to have. But yeah, no med kit. So no tourniquet. So that's what we used. We used a beach towel to try to tourniquet my arm. And y'all know beach towels are bulky, especially the ones the cruise lines give. They're like extra large.
And
And so
fluffy.
we're trying to use this thing to, yeah, exactly. And we're trying to use it to tourniquet my arm, and it's bulky, so it's difficult. And I remember my husband like trying to wrap it around, and I was kind of giving him tips like, you've got to do it as tight as you can. You're not going to hurt me. At one point he was shaking trying to get it as tight as he possibly could. But you got to think, like, this beach towel, it's touching the innermost parts of me, like this.
Yes.
It's not clean, it's not a sterilized beach towel. So there was a lot of risk at this, using this. But this was like my saving grace. Like, we had to try to, do what we could. And so he had it tight, and then I had him elevate my arm up so that I could lay my head on his lap. And then I told him, like, keep my arm elevated, keep it as tight as you can, and I'm just gonna like close my eyes. And I really didn't want to be focusing on all. It looked like a murder scene on the boat, to be honest. So I just did not want to be looking at all that. And that's when I just literally just started to pray. Like, I didn't have words. I didn't even know what to pray. I was just praying in the spirit, like, God, you are it. This is it. I'm in your hands. Because I knew I was out of the water, but I wasn't out of the woods. Death could still come for sure. Like, I could have bled out. So I was very fervent in my prayers.
The boat gets going. The captain is panicked, I'm sure, trying to get you back to somewhere that can help you. And so
Yeah.
you head where?
The first stop was Paradise Island, because it was only about 5, 7 minute boat ride from where the reef was. But if y'all know Paradise Island, it's the tourist attractions. It's the casino and the water park and some of the resorts. There is no hospital on Paradise Island. So when we beach the boat, we're calling out for help. We're, 911, shark attack, ambulance. We're using every word possible to get their attention. And somebody hollers back from the shore once they realize how severe it is. They're like, you're going to have to go to the main port. Like, there's nothing here that can handle that. All they had was like first aid stations. Well, that's not really going to do much. The captain backs the boat out, and we have to go the additional 20 or so minutes around the island to the main port. And I remember at that point,
Unreal. Unreal.
like a sinking feeling, like, oh shoot, you know, like I knew, like, this is serious. I knew at that point either the Lord was going to sustain me or I was going to be with Him in heaven. Like, it was because I knew, tourniquet air quotes, if I had, it was not going to hold a 20-minute boat ride, and we did later found out by lots of medical professionals, all my doctors and all the doctors there, they're all like, Tiffany, you are a miracle. You shouldn't have made it that boat ride, you should have bled out in the boat. But then we found out after all the surgery, the emergency surgery, my husband asks, the update, and they tell him that I didn't even require a blood transfusion because I didn't lose enough blood. I mean,
Like,
come on, wrap your head around that. Like, that is our God. He is a miracle working God.
amen. Not only did you face the most incredible challenge by being attacked by a shark who has, sorry to say this so bluntly, but ripped your arm off,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that wasn't the only challenge. At every step, you just faced another challenge. It was like
Yeah,
the enemy was saying, this is her last day. Well, I'm just going to keep throwing things at them.
yeah,
There's no way they can overcome this.
yeah.
That is just
But God, right? But
unbelievable.
God.
Yes, but
Yes,
God. That is the only
yes,
way you can explain this.
yes.
Only way. Praise God, you are doing well. It's 5 years. I mean, you showed me your arm when we met for lunch and it's healed, and that was your dominant arm. And so,
Yeah.
what have you had to learn all over again?
Oh, everything, honestly. And I didn't realize how much not having a hand would impact my life, my everyday life. Like, it really is, from brushing my teeth, holding a toothbrush and then putting your toothpaste on. At first, I couldn't use my arm that was injured at all because it was so sore for months. I couldn't put any kind of pressure. Even the lightest pressure would just send spasms of pain. And so now I can use it for a lot of things. It's like a paperweight almost, just stick it on stuff. And so now I've learned to use it. But then it was like I truly was one arm, one handed. Like I couldn't do anything with that arm. So it was like trying to figure out new ways to do everything, to do my hair, to do my makeup, to cook, to do my girls' hair, to take care of them. My youngest was in diapers. So for the longest time, I couldn't even be left alone with her because I couldn't change a diaper. I couldn't, it was like she was wiggling and I'm like trying to do it one handed. And it was like, it was a mess. It felt like every single thing I went to do, I'd have to try to figure out a workaround. And it was exhausting. Yet, anytime I felt those overwhelming feelings, which they came often,
Sure,
I
they
would
did.
think, yeah, but then I would think, but I'm not even supposed to be here. God rescued me and he saw in me something to give me the second chance. So I'm not going to get stuck in this. Why me? Like I had to pull myself out of those thoughts quickly because I knew that I was rescued for a purpose. And that's the hope that I clung to anytime I would have those overwhelming feelings.
Well, you were fighting to overcome all of the
Amen.
challenges
Yes.
that you had faced. And agreed, God saved you and he loves you, but he saved you, in my opinion, and I heard you say it, for a purpose. I mean,
Yeah.
like, if he's gone to all that trouble to intervene that many times,
Yeah.
then obviously there is a purpose there for you, Tiffany. I mean, wow.
Yes.
Wow. One of the things that you had put in your notes is about how God provided after the surgery because, well, like this wasn't an unexpected, we're planning for this surgery, we're going to make sure that we do it after we've met our deductible and before the year is
Right.
up and all of this
Right.
stuff. Surely there had to have been a lot of other things besides just medical expenses. Tell us how God provided during that time.
Oh my gosh. As you can imagine, the medical bills were pouring in because I not only had medical bills here in the States, because that I got air vac from the Bahamas to the Charlotte hospital here where I'm at. And so I had United States bills, but I also had international bills from the Bahamas. So it was a mess. And they don't talk to each other. I had to be the middleman. And it was crazy. All these bills come thousands of dollars, and of course there's an out of pocket max, but that doesn't always apply to international bills. That only applied to the US side. So there was a lot of gray area that the insurance was trying to do, to not pay some of the stuff. And I remember just taking it to the Lord, like, my friend had set up a GoFundMe and some stuff was coming in that way, which was so helpful. But it was beyond a GoFundMe. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars, and one bill for my prosthetic alone was 80 grand out of pocket. Like, that's one
Wow.
bill. We were up against like this massive wall of like financial craziness. And I remember just telling the Lord, like, I know you're my provider, so I'm not going to stress about this. I know that you've taken care of me thus far, so surely a medical bill is not going to stop it, like, and so
Amen.
I just started speaking out, his promises over me and our situation. And the Lord works supernaturally. There was many different ways that the medical bills ended up being taken care of. One of the ways was we had an anonymous donor in the community that showed up to a fundraiser that the local radio station came in and did for us, and he gave a wad of cash, and it ended up being $2,000 that he said later. I got to meet him quickly because they said they saw him like come and drop it, and then he tried to jet, and I like tracked him down, and I'm like, I just wanted to thank you, personally. I didn't even know how much money at that point. We just knew it was a lot. And he said, I just wanted to tell you that I felt the Lord ask me to come drive here. He drove over 35 minutes to come to the gas station we were doing the fundraiser at. And he said, the Lord told me a specific amount, and that's what I gave. And I was like, wow. I mean, just using anonymous people that I had no clue, I didn't even know who he was. And this wasn't even a Christian radio station that aired this. It was like a local, country rock place, so I was just astonished. And I had a medical provider that ended up writing off some of the costs for me without me even asking. Like, I just showed up one day and was asking about some of the bills, and they were like, actually, your balance is zero. And I'm like, wait, what? they
That's
had
God. That's
they
God.
had totally wrote it off without me even appealing to anything or whatever. The Lord just went through and just supernaturally provided. And the last one that was quite large was the insurance. They ended up paying 100% of my international bills, and they weren't supposed to. It was just the check came in the mail, and I was expecting it for a way less amount. And when I opened it up, it was for the full amount. And I'm like, I just started weeping. I'm like, God,
Yes.
you are so good. He used every avenue beyond what I can understand to provide supernaturally.
It's so wonderful to hear how God was part of your story, not just once. I mean, once is just a blessing in and of itself,
Yes.
but how many times God was there? He was your shield, He protected you, He provided. Just praise God is all I can
Amen.
say, is all I can say. This is one of those opportunities where you have witnessed the hand of God in such a powerful way.
Yes.
And I love hearing that part. That's the part that affirms my faith, even though it didn't happen to me. And I hope that it does for
Amen.
others as well.
Yes, and I think it's just a great reminder that challenges, they don't have to stop you, right? And
Absolutely
when
not.
when God's on your side, it does not matter. All bets are off.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.